daughter. You can't even go cheaper by the dozen, it is dozens. So was the family, but there was no one teacher available to tutor them, because a teacher had to do a multi-pronged approach. He had to teach them Shastram, Dhanurvidya, Gadavidya and so on. They wanted an in-house teacher because their house itself had a school, 101 sons, 5 more sons, 107. So Dushyala was also there. You have to teach. That one day when the boys were playing, they spotted, while they were playing with the ball went into a well. They didn't know swimming. Flips. Phelps. They were not as good as Phelps. They couldn't jump. They saw one Rishi passing by and said, Rishi, why don't you pick the ball for us? They thought the Rishi will plunge into the waters, take. He didn't do any of it. He was carrying a bunch of darbha grass. He uttered some mantra and left it on that grass. That grass, that blade of grass, darbha grass, went and stood on the periphery of the ball. And as he kept on adding the blades of grass, it went one over the other, making it a rope. The Rishi took that ball out. These boys were surprised. Of course, they said, thank you so much. And they left. One boy noted this and went running to Bhishma Acharya and said, Bhishma, you've been hunting for a teacher. I have found one. Bhishma asked, who is it? That person who used this darbha grass to get the ball out. Bhishma said, he's appointed. And the boy who recommended was Arjuna. The student spotted the teacher. He recognized the teacher. So, but there was a condition laid to Drona's recruitment. The offer letter had rules. He could tutor only the boys of this clan. Outside students not allowed. You also have, right, if students from other states come and apply, the tuition fees will be high. You have seen Drona's offer letter. So, Drona tutored. The condition was he cannot tutor anybody else. So, 100 plus Yujutsu plus 5. So, 106 boys were trained. That is when Drona Acharya's weakness, what was his weakness? Son. So, he said, make an exception for my son alone. Though my son is not of your clan, let Ashwathama also study. Can exceptions be made? Yes, in maths we use L'Hopital rule. 0 by 0 indeterminate, then we make sin x as cos x, x is 1, cos 0 is 1. So we have an exception to the general rule. So he said, let my son be the exception. So Ashwathama also learned. While all the boys studied under Drona, Arjuna was exceptional. There are multiple yuddhams that happen in Mahabharata through the 18 Parvas. The only one who never ever was defeated was Arjuna. The only one. Everybody else will be defeated at one point in time. But Arjuna was not defeated. Could not be defeated. He was the only one who learnt the art of shooting from both his hands. So he will hold the bows with his foot toe. And he will shoot from both his hands. So the ability to write with both your hands makes you ambidextrous, right? He could shoot from both his hands. So he was called Sabyasachi. Sabyasachi means the one who can shoot with both his hands. In the east of India, Vakaram is not there. So Va will become Ba. So Sabyasachi is Sabyasachi. Today he stitches. In those days he used to shoot. Sindhujata kalashi bhuvostayoho snigdha bhavam avalokya tadrisham tatra pauranikaraha samacharan chitrapura jathare nimajjanam, says Ananta Kavi in Bharata Champu. Now these boys learnt. Drona was a good teacher, but with that iota of partiality. So there is one instance in Shri Mahabharatam, what he does is, if the syllabus fixed is so much, he would want to teach outside the syllabus portion to his son alone. How could he do that? The other boys will spot him. So he had one idea. He would give pots to the boys and say, go to the nearby lake, fetch waters and come. And those pots used to have narrow necks, long narrow necks those pots used to have. So the time taken for the waters to displace the air inside the pot and get inside the pot, let's say, is about 5 minutes. He would give a pot with a wide mouth and a narrow neck, smaller neck, wider neck, opening to his son alone. This is there in Mahabharatam Adi Parva. So that the son takes only 2 minutes. By the time the son comes and the boys come, there will be a difference of 3 minutes. In those 3 minutes, he will teach extra portions. See what were all the jugads done. But to his surprise, probably shock, when he was expecting his son to come running, Papa! Expecting his son to come running, he used to see Arjuna also running along. He then asked, Arjuna, how did you fetch the waters? Arjuna said, yesterday you were reciting Varuna Mantram. While you were reciting, I learnt it. I didn't even go to the pond. In the very place I used this mantram and got the waters and came. That is when Drona realizes in one shlokam. However be the obstacles or impediments, if a person has to be successful, nothing can stop that person. Arjuna came and Arjuna too learned those extra syllabus, out of syllabus questions. As these boys were tutored under Drona, towards the end of their education, while they threw their hats up and the candid shot was done of their graduation, they went and asked their teacher, how should we pay your fees? Do you have a Zelle account? Can I Zelle it to you? Do you have Chase or do you have Federal? What account is it? So that is when Drona said, nothing of this is required. I don't need money. I have all the facilities. But these boys insisted. They said, you have to ask for something. That is when Drona said, I was humiliated by my dear friend Drupada. Go make him a prisoner and bring him here. All the students were to go, but here comes the problem. Duryodhana had an ego problem. He said, why should Pandavas come? We 100 are enough, we will go. He went. Drupada arrested all 100 of them. See this Duryodhana, Bhima, Duryodhana, Karna, they are all made heroes by our movie directors. Karna, especially South Africa, he will come to the finals and fail. He will never ever win the cup. So, Karna is not the way our movie directors have. Suryaputra, Karan, 391 episodes, hot star, waste. Very jealous person he is. To the best of my knowledge, Vyasa has written Mahabharatam. In Vyasa's Bharatam, he is a very jealous person. But in our Tamil movies, Ullatil Nalla Ullam, Rabina Mami Adara. Waste. So, the 100 people were arrested. Now for Drona, it was a humiliation. He wanted to arrest Drupada. Drupada has arrested his students. Then he said, Yudhishthira, you go. Do you want an army? Yudhishthira said, too many cooks spoil the broth. I will go with my brothers. We 5 are enough. So, the horses for the chariot were protected by Bhima, who was walking in the front. The wheels of the chariot were protected by Nakula and Sahadeva, who were walking by the sides. The Rathi, called as Yudhishthira, was protected by Arjuna. So Yudhishthira, Arjuna in the Ratham, Bhima in the front, Nakula and Sahadeva by the sides. They all went. Drupada thought, to fight me only 5 people have come. When Arjuna started shooting his arrows, he didn't realize when he placed the arrow and when he shot. It was so quick. Finally, when he was disarmed, Arjuna jumped into the chariot. took the sword from his scabbard, pulled Drupada by his hair and laid the sword near his neck and said, I will not kill you. I am here only to arrest you. You are a Raja. I need to respect you. You are my Acharya's friend. I will not disrespect you. Don't fight with me now. I will just tie you up. Don't argue. Come with me. So Drupada was taken before Drona, and Drona said, see, my students have won over the war. Technically, your Rajyam is entirely mine. But I don't want you to go empty-handed. I will give you half that Rajyam now. He said, half the Rajyam I will give you Drupada. That region will have a capital called Kampilya. And he gave. Drupada was extremely humiliated. See, a Raja has been arrested. He felt very sad. That time he vowed, I should have a son who can kill this Drona. And when Arjuna arrested him, he had a thought, if at all I had a daughter, Arjuna should be my son-in-law. This is there in Mahabharata. Later, to achieve a son like this, he went to Yaja and Upayaja. Yaja, he went and told the Rishi Yaja, can you do a Putra Kameshti? I want a customizable, ready-made son. I don't want the material. Ready-made hona chahiye. He should have the ability to vanquish Drona in a war. Yaja said, I don't do such kind of petty yagams. मैं नहीं करूँगा. Principles है मेरे पास. मैं नहीं करूँगा. So he went to Upayaja, Yaja's brother. Upayaja said, if you give something extra, I will do. So Upayaja was paid. And Upayaja performed a Putra Kameshti. In that Putra Kameshti yagam, which is generally performed using Atharvana Vedam, Jala kalashams were kept, Purna kalashams full of water, Vedas were being chanted, and finally that water had to be touched by Drupada's Dharmapatni. She had gone out. She said, Kitna din ye mera husband karta hi rahega, main bahut busy hu. She went outside. So Upayaja said, call Drupada's wife immediately. She didn't come. So he poured the waters into the Yajna Kundam and said, let this achieve whatever you want. Immediately as they left, from the blazing fire, see, all this is magic. Now don't ask me where is logic. No sir, it has to come from the amnionic sac. The water has to break. We have to Papa has to cut the umbilical cord. He has to give that name very in detail. All that is correct. You are absolutely right. Whenever you go to Vaikuntham, you ask Vyasa. So, from the fires, blazing fires, came one boy, extremely valorous, showering and showing only prowess, very well decked. Jwala varnau ghora rupaha, kiriti varmachottamam, bibhrat sakhadgaha sasharo, dhanushman Vinadan muhuhu Dhrishtadyumna Yurmi Ashtatvat Dyumna Dyut Sambhavadapi Dhrishtadyumna Kumaroyam Drupadasya Bhavishyati. Drupadasya Bhavishyati, from Drupada came Dhrishtadyumna. Well grown son, knowledgeable son, which parents had. You don't have to go to elementary school, apply, middle school, magnet program, STEM courses. All this you don't have to do. When the child himself or herself is born fully developed. So the boy was born, and it was a well thought yagam, because Drona wanted a son who had the ability to vanquish Drona in a war. God. Dhrishtadyumna was God. Everybody said, pack up. They were all packing up. They had to leave the Yajna Vatika. But the fire was still blazing. See, whenever you do a yagam, you should not leave the premises until Agni leaves. See, you have invited Agni. When you have started, you have said, Agni, ajaiye. Jata vedase jateti vedaha jata vedaha. Agnimi ide purohitam yajnasya deva mritvijam. You have called Agni. See, imagine you've called somebody home. That person is your guest. What should you do? You should treat them and then tell them bye. Instead, you leave the house and go. So, when you have invited Agni towards the end of that Yajnam Havan, you have to wait till that Agni Shamanam happens. It has to extinguish. Then only you have to leave. So the fire was still blazing. People wondered, we have not added any fuel, sir. How is this Agni blazing? From those fires came a woman. Kumari chapi panchali Vedi madhyat samuthitat Shubhaga darshaniyangi Vedi madhya manorama Shyama padmapala shakshi Nila kunjita murdhaja Tamra tunganakhi subhru Charupina payodhara. Vyasa's description, Kumari chapi panchali. Came a woman, she was never expected. From Panchala Desham she came. Kumari chapi panchali. Vedi madhyat samuttita. She came from the Vedika. Vedika is the place where you do yagam. Vedika need not be always square in shape. Remember this. For certain Vedikas, we design it on the shape of a Garuda. When Dasharatha performed Ashwamedham and later Putrakameshti, Garuda shaped altar is mentioned, Vedika is mentioned. Similarly, when you do Agnihotram, you have morning, afternoon, evening, you have to maintain the fires. Then you have a circular kundam, semicircular kundam and square kundam. That is why Aryabhatta says the area has to be the same. He says Chaturadhika Shatam Ashtagunam Dvasashti Ayutascha. Add 4 to 100, 104. Ashtagunam, multiply it with 8, 832. Add 62,000 to it. Dvasashti Ayutam. 62,832 divided by Dva Ayutam, divided by 20,000. 3.1416. So he says use pi value to construct the circular kundam to get the area of a square. Because you have got side into side, then for pi r square you have to use that pi. So Agni Kundam's measurement has also been given in our Shastra. So from the Agni Kundam came a lady. Kumari chapi panchali Vedi madhyat samuthitat Shubhaga. Shubhaga, very pretty. Darshaniyangi. You can keep looking at her. Vedi madhya manorama. She will bring happiness to the minds of people. Shyama. Shyama. She was pitch dark, completely dark. See, all our scriptures, the heroes and heroines will be dark complexion. Ramayanam, Rama, dark complexion. Krishna, dark complexion. Vyasa, dark complexion. Draupadi, dark complexion. Samudrika Lakshana Shastram is a grantha written 1800 years back, which suggests how the man and the woman should be to be a part of this beauty contest. They say only the dark complexion people are allowed to sport gold jewelry. Rule. So she was dark. Shyama. How Shyama was she? See, in dark color itself, there are various shades. If you are into textiles, you will probably realize the importance of colors. பச்சையிலேயே எடுத்துட்டேன்னா கிளி பச்சை, பாசி பச்சை, எண்ணெய் பச்சை, கருத்த பச்சை, பச்சமும் நீலையும் கலந்திருக்கும். See, for example, the men and women in the Matanga clan who lived around Madurai in south of India, they were dark, but their skin had a tinge of green. So they were called Mechaka. Mamavani Nakshi Rajamatangi Meenakshi me mudam dehi me chakangi Rajamatangi. So even in darkness there is a tinge of green. Maragata Manimaya Chela. How was Krishna's face? Narayana Bhattatri says, if you have to scoop from an emerald mountain and keep them as cheeks, put 2 layers of freshly found butter over it, that would reflect the gems of the dazzling fish earrings that he wears. That is how Krishna is. Unnila Dantapankti Spurataruna Tarachaya Bimbadarantaha Preeti Prasyanda Mandasmitirataram Vaktra me. So, how was Draupadi? She had a tinge of blue. Shyama Padma Palashakshi Neela Kunjita Mudhaja. Her hair was curly in nature. Tamra Tunga Nakhi Subru. It looked as if copper was smelted and placed in place of her nails. Tamra Tunga Nakhi Subru Charupina Payodhara. She was an unexpected byproduct in that yagam. She emerged. Father wondered, Ye kya hua, kaisa hua? I wanted only a son. Abhi beti bachao, beti padhao bhi aa rahi hai. Ye kya ho raha hai? Upyaj, idhar aa jaiye. Upayaja ke. See, Upayaja said, it is correct. What was the input statement? The input statement was, whatever you have desired will happen. What did he desire? That he wanted a son who could vanquish Drona. That happened. He had also desired a son-in-law. He had desired a daughter who will have Arjuna as the husband. So daughter was also there in his wish list. It was just in that Excel sheet like how you hide columns. That was latent heat, hidden heat, it was hidden wish. So that also fructified. So she emerged. Krishne yatya bruvan Krishnam Krishna bhutsahi varnataha. She was called Krishna. Now the moment she arrived, her father said, okay, I've got all the jewelry for you. From North to Smond Road. Lalita, Joy, Joss, GRT, Midi, So, all the jewelry was kept for her. The Sairandrika Stris arrived. There is one beautiful shlokam. Sakalamapi vapu vibhushyatanyah sapari sakhi vipulekshana bhujapi chirataramanavekshya madhyadesham karadhrita kanchana kanchireva tasthau. The Sairandrika Stris placed that ornament that does the Simantam. Simantam means that which splits the hair. So there is something called Netti Chutti. So there was this thing placed. After that, the earrings were placed. Choker was placed. Step chain was placed. Then came the girdle, Mekhala. Mekhala is girdle, where you place it in the hip. The Sairandrika Stris lifted the girdle and they had to place it in her Madhyadesham. Madhyadesham is hip. Suddenly they were to a shock. One lady said, where is her hip? Thedindrika. Why? Madhyadesham kanchiriva kanchireva tasthau. Because it is said, as per Samudrika Rakshana Shastram, both for the man and the woman, the hip should just be a connector between the upper torso and the lower torso. It should not be visible from a distance, it seems. It should be that thin. If I go to my doctor, he says, all your Purva Janma Karma is here. Like Shukla Yajurvedam, Krishna Yajurvedam. Cholesterol also has good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. For the man and the woman, the hip should be that thin. I will give you an example. I'm sure, even if you don't speak the Tamil language, you must have heard of a saint poet who lived 2000 years back called Thiruvalluvar. If you have not seen him, come to Chennai local buses. His photo will be there. So this Thiruvalluvar has given us 1330 couplets in Tamil called Thirukkural. So in that he describes in one of the couplets, he says he along with his friend, they were walking by the streets of Mylapore. Mylapore is one locality in Chennai. You will get good vegetables. So Thiruvalluvar with his friend, they were walking by the streets of Mylapore. In the afternoon time, they noticed that outside one house, the members with whom he was well acquainted with, arrangements were being made for a dead body to be carried. He went and asked the people who had gathered outside the house, who is dead? They said, the 16-year-old girl, she's dead. Thiruvalluvar said, this morning I saw her. I saw her. What happened to her? People gathered. They said, no, she was all right. She went along with her friend to the garden close by. She wanted to adorn her beautiful hair tresses with flowers. So she plucked a flower variety called as Anicha Poo. Poo ante flower. Arthamaindi kada? Pushpam. Pushpam Tamil Aravadu Chattunarante adiki peru Poo. ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ಹೂವು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರನೇ ಮಲ್ಲೇಶ್ವರಮಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ರೋಡೇ ಇದೆ, ಸಂಪಿಗೆ ರೋಡ್. ಸಂಪಿಗೆ ಪುಷ್ಪ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇವಾಗ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಮರಾನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಂಪಿಗಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಹುಡುಕ್ಬೇಕು. So Anichappu, this lady plucked the Anichappu of the calyx with the corolla. Botanists will know there is a calyx, corolla, stalk. So she plucked the flower with its stalk and placed it in her head tresses. Unable to withstand the weight of the stalk, her hip broke and she died, it seems.
Oh my.
So Thiruvalluvar says this Kural to say that the hip of the man and the woman should be so thin and delicate that even the stalk of the flower's weight body should not be able to. That's why I said we cannot relate to it, let's leave it. Now, Sakalamapu Vibhushyatanya Sapadi Sakhi Vipulekshana Bhujapi Chirataramanavekshya Madhyadesham. So they were confused where to keep the girdle. Katithatita Mekhala Kachitamani Khandita Katithatita Mekhala. They did not know where to keep that Mekhala. There is another shloka describing her beauty. This Mekhala had uncut diamonds. Uncut diamonds. They were all studded in that Mekhala. They didn't have a particular color. They would reflect like the mirrors of Aranmula. Evade Malayali undo? Evadana? Oh, sorry. Aranmula mirror. So there is a place called Aranmula in Kerala. There is a old technique of making mirrors akin to the Indus Valley civilization only there in India, where they polish the metal to make it a mirror. So such beautiful mirror-like uncut diamonds were placed on her girdle. That girdle was placed in the supposedly region called hip. Now women who had come to dress her, they had gathered around Draupadi. All women were surrounding Draupadi. One was wearing Pochampalli. One was wearing Sambalpuri Ikkat. One was wearing Banarasi brocade. One was wearing Paithani. One was with organza with Kalamkari border. One was with KSIC. One was with Kanchipuram. Whatever more you want to add, you add. So all these multicolored saried draped women were standing around her. Their reflections fell on the stones that she was carrying. So their sari reflections fell on the stones, which means those saris were seen on her stone. The poet says, unaware of the fact what would happen to her in the future, Draupadi held them tight because in the future she may need these saris. Kanchi kalapamani bimbita parshvayoshit kausheya panktiravaniindra suta babhase आविर्भविष्यदधि गोष्ठकटीनि मग्नं वासशतं जनदृशामिव सूचयन्ति. Meanwhile, the Pandavas were invited to a palace that was made with inflammable materials called lakshagraha. But Vidura was able to overcome the impediment of death that they were about to face. Prajnaha prajna pralabajnaha is Mahabharata shloka. So he sent one person who could drill a big tunnel in the ground and make them all escape. As this happened on one hand, the Pandavas escaped from Lakshagraham. Meanwhile, a prayer meeting was arranged in Hastinapura. He put some glycerin to his eyes and Duryodhana said, I absolutely miss my brother Yudhishthira, we were so close. Somehow all of them are dead. And Shakuni said, Mat ro Duryodhana, I know how much of love you had for Pandava. All this was arranged, this was covered by all media, by Jambuka channel. You know Jambuka? Fox. So, Trayaksharam, you know Trayaksharam? CNN. So all those channels covered the news. And India, since it was India, Arnab said, nation wants to know what happened to Pandavas. We don't know what happened to the Pandavas. Bas chale gaye. Now these Pandavas escaped to a village called Ekachakra Nagaram. And from Ekachakra, after killing Bakasura, since the news was spreading very fast, the Pandavas escaped with Kunti to a close by forest. That is when many rishis had arrived and they said, see, in the close by capital called Kampilya, Drupada is celebrating the swayamvaram for his daughter. All of us are invited. Why don't 5 of you join? You see, all 5 of you are suffering from good health. So all 5 of you can join. So the 5 of them join. So swayamvaram, if at all there is one swayamvaram that is remarkably distinct and very, very noteworthy, it is Draupadi swayamvaram. So the woman would be given the right to choose. And there will be some Veera Shulkam which has to be kept, some activity you have to do, you have to lift the bow, hit the arrow. Namma mama conveyor saman it's spondylitis. Why is he wearing collar? He pulled the luggage from the conveyor. So there was a bow kept 5 arrows, only 5 arrows. And one fish was attached to a disc and the disc would be circulating in the top. The circulating disc along with the fish's reflection will be seen in the waters. Looking at the waters, you have to hit at the